let's go for this. Now, my name is Paul Clarke. I am an ex-computer games animator and artist. So I've always had 3D creativity sort of like ingrained in me from the earliest point of, let's swap cameras again. From the earliest point of my working life. I came out of college as an artist. I went straight into 3D animation and 3D computer games. Because of that, the gamification of education has always interested me more than it might have done other people. I do believe the more that we can make education and any STEM subject more interesting for every student in front of you, whether they are scientifically or mathematically minded or not, is one of our highest callings. To get somebody who isn't into your subject deeply into your subject, I think is something that I am very much into. So we're going to be looking at this application, Paint 3D, and I have used this application a lot. Now, I was lucky enough to have been a MS Paint artist about 5-6 years ago, and Microsoft saw the artwork that I did and asked if I could come and join them and work on Paint 3D when it's being developed. So from the get-go, Paint 3D was being developed with a teacher in the background saying, we need this, or this would be useful, or can we do that? And I wrote a lot of the demos for Paint 3D. So if you go onto YouTube and you type in Paint 3D how to, all of those demos are the ones that I wrote. So a lot of them are class minded as well. Now, can I just quickly check the camera that you're looking at now? Is it flipped? Is it the correct orientation? Because for me, this is backwards, the screen that I'm looking at.
It's all good for us, Paul.
Brilliant. I love to hear that. So in this session, 3 aims and objectives, because you never know when Ofsted might be lurking under a rock somewhere. Why is 3D important? Who can use 3D tools in their workplace? And I want to teach some simple 3D tools and tricks. And if you want to play along, I'm going to do this fairly quickly. Let's just zoom over so you can see that. I'm going to do this fairly quickly because there's a lot I want to show you. You can load up Paint 3D in the background if you want to and play along. If you get stuck anywhere, message me here, Paint 3D EDU or at Kirkal. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see that I put out loads of tutorials and video files and whatever on making Paint 3D objects. Join me there if you want. If you've got any questions and you need it slowed down to follow along with, grab me there. Now, first, why bring creativity in the classroom? Now, if you're here, I assume you've got an interest in this and you want to know more about this. But if you were talking to another teacher and trying to explain this, why do we want to do this? Well, games, media, films, TV, everything, these are the skills your students want to learn. These are the workplaces that they want to go into. 3D is a massive, massive part of that. 3D and videos are proven to increase and improve understanding and exploration. And I've got a couple of slides in a minute, although I've realized I haven't put the sources on. So later on, I'll give Elaine access to the PowerPoint with the sources put in there as well. But there are scientific studies that have been undertaken, which show that if somebody's looking at a 3D object or environment or educative environment, they are 12 to 24% more likely to be taking things in, to be engaged and involved. And lastly, and most importantly, Paint 3D is free. This is a free tool. Paint 3D, Videos EDU, you know, all these tools, OneNote and what have you, and Whiteboard are really, really fabulous, especially if they're used in the correct way. So like I said, participants are 12% more receptive if they're viewing content in 3D. And they're over 20% more receptive to an increase in understanding of the message. Now, I'm not saying you can use 3D for everything. And I'm not saying that 3D is suitable for everything. But what I am saying is that 3D will engage some students in a way that your other methodologies might not do. But just for a second, and I haven't got the chat room open, so I'm just going to open that quickly. Stop and think for a second, please. I'd like you to think of an industry, any industry that your students are desperately interested and involved in getting into. What are those industries? Just think for a second. And then if you're by your chat room, can you put some of those industries in the meeting chat as well? What is it you thought about? What are the first things that came to mind when you were thinking about it? So health and social care, totally, absolutely. Because what I'm most interested in seeing if anyone does the one that I would be most surprised that they do. So like I said in the earlier slide, film, TV, games, media is an obvious case in point for 3D games design, definitely. For 3D use, 3D creativity and capability, graphic design, product design, definitely. All of these things, perfect examples of what I'm about to, what I want to say, what I want to put across. But even if we went into the science subjects, biomechanical, medical, architecture, product design, ha ha ha, teacher. So Alexander, thank you very much. Every industry on the planet has been completely revolutionized by the use of 3D creativity, printing, VR, etc. Only one industry lags behind, and it's education, I would argue. I mean, feel free to argue if you want in a meeting chat, or if you want to put another point across. Supporting millions with mathematics, definitely. I teach at Guildford College. I used to teach it. We are 3D. 3D is spatial awareness is something that inherently we understand because we do it every day. We get up, we stand on the floor, we move, we walk through doors and what have you. 3D is our natural brain language. To take something down to 2 dimensions is a fabulous thing in an artistic point of view, but 3D is our natural visual language. So I teach computer game graphics. One of my favorite colleagues was a maths teacher who loved integrating Paint 3D into her classes. And I'm going to show a couple of those examples later on in the thing. So we should be integrating these tools. If you remember back to your teacher training, you might remember this, Bloom's taxonomy. You start remembering, you understand, you apply, you analyze, you evaluate, and at the very end, at the top of the educational tree or the triangle, we create. But we cannot ask our students to create if we don't give them the tools to do so. And that 2D diagram of Bloom's taxonomy is fine. But anyone, if you can make that 2D diagram, you can make this 3D object. And the difference between a 3D object and a 2D object is this. You can move it, you can rotate it, you can scale it, you can focus in on certain parts, you can hide aspects or move them around. This is just PowerPoint. I've just created an object in Paint 3D and imported it in here. Now, admittedly, partially that's just there to look pretty, to look nice, to engage and to draw students in, to speak the language of the entertainment language that they take in and on board every day. But what's the educational value for that? Let's do a presentation. I'm not going to do a presentation about sharks, but say it's a presentation about sharks and your student grabs a load of photos of a shark. Well, there's 3 pictures of shark. And if I was a teacher, if I was a horrible teacher, I would say to a student, well, 2 of those are different sharks. So you failed the first hurdle. Yeah, which would be an awful thing to say, but it would be easily done. Because if I want loads of pictures of sharks, how am I to know which one is a different shark? But I'm just going to come out of this for a sec. I'm going to go to that slide. I'm going to go to Insert, 3D Models. That will load up the 3D clip art. I type in shark. I click on the shark and I insert it into my PowerPoint. So I know this is a thing about Paint 3D. I want to show the use and the usefulness about Paint 3D in everyone's work. No matter what curriculum you are teaching, we all use PowerPoint. We all use Word and what have you. So I've got my shark there. I'm going to copy it. And in the next slide, I want to focus on the gills. So I'm just going to rotate that around. I'm going to zoom and pan. I'm going to pan it, zoom in on the gills. And actually, all I want is that bit there. So I can put some text there. Now, if I make sure the transition is set, instead of fade to morph, I'll set that one to morph as well. Instead, I get a 3D object that in PowerPoint rotates and moves and focuses. You can go for simple 2D pictures, or you can go for 3D objects. If you can import a picture, you can import a 3D model, and that has so much more use. Doesn't have to be a shark, could be a building, could be an object, could be a pizza, could be a burger, whatever. You go into the Microsoft 3D clip art tool. It's as simple as a picture. It is much better. So I want to 3D visualize this purpose. Bloom's taxonomy. I'm not going to make all of it. I'm only going to make a couple of the boxes, the text boxes, and the rockets, because I want to get through 5 different demos. But all of these explain a different purpose within Paint 3D. So I'm in Paint 3D at the moment. I click on the 3D tools. I click on a box and I drag. If I go to 3D view, I can see that this will be a thin and long box, like that. Which in the case of what I'm making, I do not want. So I'm going to delete it. And instead, I'm going to tap a 3D box, and now that is a perfect cube. Now, I'm hesitating on that just to explain to you that there are some differences in 3D creativity that your students also will need to learn. Tap and drag will do different things. Now, I'm just going to make that smaller, less tall instead. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to resize it. And then I've got that. I'm just going to zoom on it so you can see it a bit clearer. I'm going to select both. That shift select. So click on one object, shift, click on the second object. Or I can drag around both objects. That will again select both. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to scale it. I'm going to place size on top. Now, to make that Bloom's taxonomy object, well, I've already done 30% of the work already. And these are all tool sets that your students will understand. Copy, paste, drag, scale. It's not teaching somebody a new language here. Now I'm going to go to the 2D tools, and I'm going to recolor the boxes. I'm going to make that one darker. And then, if you remember in the PowerPoint, here, I've actually got the text as a 3D object on here. Well, I'm going to do that in a different demo later because I want to show show you something different. It's one of the coolest things of Paint 3D. It's the fact that I can write or draw directly onto a box. I can annotate onto a box. So here, the first one was remember. Then it was understand. Then it was apply and analyze. And I've drawn those things directly onto the box. I've written those things directly onto the box themselves. Now, lastly, I'm going to make the rocket. And the rocket is lovely because it's such a simple object. You can make a more complex object, rocket, whoops. But in this case, super simple. Go to primitives, 3D shapes, click on the cone. I want a cone for the top of my rocket. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to scale it using the middle scale icon just under the rotate tool, drag it down and paste. That gives me that 2 cones on top of each other. Tube is the body of the rocket. Now the flames for the rocket, I'm going to use, again, one of Paint 3D's most powerful tools, the 3D doodle tool. There's 2 types of doodle you can do. One is a hard-edged one that looks like a biscuit cookie cutter. So if you can see that, you can see a hard edge on the side. In this case, for the flames, I don't want that. I want a soft edge one. So I'm just going to draw those flames again. And that gives me a rounded edge, a pillow shape doodle. It's called doodle because it's just drawing in 3D. So now I've got flames coming out of the rocket. When I make an object, I rotate it in 90 degrees just to make sure it's all okay from the side as well. I'm going to group that, so it's one object. And now I'm going to do the same thing with the round edge doodle tool to create the smoke coming out of the back of the rocket. That gives me this. Now I'll admit that I am whipping through this really quickly, and there's 100 bits that I would like to slow down and just say, make sure you do this. Press Control when you're scaling and so on. But I want to show you 4 different demos that do 4 different things. Then for you, it's for you to come back to me and say, can you re-show me that to get again slower? Totally happy to do that. Now, this is Bloom's taxonomy made in approximately 4 to 6 minutes. I forgot to look at what time it started. I select all of that. I copy it. I go back to PowerPoint. I'm going to insert a new slide. Paste that object in, and that takes the object that I've made in Paint 3D and it pastes it into PowerPoint for use there. So the text, okay, so Alexander, that's a good question. One is, can text be converted into a font? I will show you that later. You can load in text as a 3D object and then use that as either text or whatever. I'm using a Surface Go, Kirsty, which is a Microsoft tablet, using a Surface Go, using a Surface Pen. I used to be all Apple, funny enough, years ago, but I cannot use a laptop without a touchscreen and without a stylus. It takes away so much functionality for me. So here is the one that I made in minutes. And I'm going to duplicate that slide. I'm just going to rotate it, scale it. I'll tell you what, Alexander, sorry, I will come back to that. I'm going to do some text in a sec for this object as well. And then again, if I set this to a transition, a morph transition, I can move the object around in 3D to focus where I want to. So Alexander, to go back to your question, I was drawing the text on that quickly because I'm going to use text later. However, if I wanted to add text into here, I can't ease. No, okay, I'll show you two things. One is create. So here is the text as a 3D object. Which I can then attach to the rocket, which is how I did the original. There we go. So that's the text on the rocket. So it's the first, hopefully answers the first question. The second question is, can you convert the text, or can the text be converted into a font? Not easily. What you have to do is go to 3D shapes, click on 3D doodle, and, well, that's way too big. Let's do it a different color so you can see it. So I'm looking at the text that I've written there. Now I'm going to draw it using the sausage brush. That gives me this. Again, 3D text that I can add and apply to my object. Did that answer your question, Alexander? I hope so. If not, always get in touch with me on Twitter. I'm always happy to chat there. So that's Bloom's taxonomy made in Paint 3D. Decorative, I'll admit, also 3D printable. And that's the session that happens afterwards in a couple of hours' time, hour and a bit's time. When I talk about that. Demo 2 of 3D visualize. I forgot to change that text. A 3D illustrated story. Now, again, I want everyone to feel that they've got a rationale and a reason to use Paint 3D. Whether they use Word or PowerPoint or similar. So I'm just going to save this as Bloom 2. Whoops, missed that. File, save as. Now, the next demo I'm going to show you is one of my favorites. I love this demo. And it surprises me because it didn't used to be the sort of demo I like to do. Being a massive artistic egotist, I love showing off my own artwork because I'm a massive artistic egotist. However, there's something joyous about opening up 3D for everybody. And again, 3D clip art is fine. So if I'm in my 3D library here, and I'm just going to have a look, and I can find lots of objects that are useful. Crowns, sharks, avatars, and so on. Now I'm going to add in this one, the male knight. And I'm going to add in 1, 2, 3, 4 objects. I'm only going to make one object. So there's the first one, the male knight. Now I'm going to find a suitable female character to go along with him. Hang on a second. I've got to the age where I've got to take my glasses off to look at things, which is deeply. So I've got a male character, a male knight, a female character, a female queen. I'm going to go back into 3D clip art, and I'm going to get a floating island. I am going to have that one. And lastly, I'm going to get a tower. And then hopefully you'll see what I've got in mind with this. I will go for that one. Now, if you have got an artistic student who is trapped is too strong a word, but if you've got an artistic student who is not engaging with a English language class, well, some of you know that asking them to illustrate a story might be a great way of doing it. Well, what's even more cool than that? Illustrating it in 3D would be a nice way of doing it. So if I wanted to do the sequel to Rapunzel, I'm going to grab Rapunzel. She's down there. The knight, he's up there. The knight's stuck on the tower. And the only creativity I need to bring to this 3D scene is hair, because Rapunzel has no long hair in this. So I'm just going to give her long hair. Which I've just drawn in. Put there, I'm just going to elongate the island so the hair doesn't fall off the island. And that gives me this. Well, all I've done is taken, it is a Surface Go, Elaine, with a Surface Stylus. All I've done is taken a couple of 3D objects, resized them, moved together. The only thing that I've had to create, so this could be for one of your writing students who desperately wants to illustrate their own book. The only thing I've done is drawn the hair. Now I'm going to save this as a 3D model, which is Rapunzel 2. And then whilst that's saving, I'm going to go to Word. I'm going to add some words in. This is the story, Rapunzel, the return. So just a little bit of text in there. Which I'm going to give it different sizes and spacings and scales and whatever. I can't see the library in your version. If you are not logged into the internet, it won't show up, Alexander. So make sure you're logged into the internet and your computer can see it. If you are on a slightly older version of Paint 3D, on some versions it was hidden. But I don't know. So this has saved. If I go to Insert, 3D Object, 3D Model, sorry. Oh, okay. It used to have an icon up there that said from your own files. Okay, then I will have to copy and paste it. Select all, copy, paste. And that's copying in it now. So I swap back to Paint 3D because when you copy a 3D object into Office, Office doesn't give you a loading bar, whereas Paint 3D does. So I go back here. The pasting dialog box is the bit that says how long it's going to take. Now, it used to be that you could go into Office and load up your own objects from there. But from the looks of it, you've got to copy and paste now. But now we've got a 3D file, the illustrated Rapunzel, that I can choose who I'm focusing on. And even better, I can have word wrap. So I can illustrate this story using the same object multiple times. I'm just going to move this over there. And now I'm going to focus on the prince. And then, again, I can have this on word wrap. And move it around scene. So I can illustrate a story from one object, but from multiple views because it's 3D and I choose where the camera is going to be. Just going to lose this because I'm loading up a lot of big 3D files. So a visualization of a story. So English, language, storytelling using Paint 3D. Now, last month, it's September now, but last month I was thoroughly enjoying doing Smaugust. And Smaugust allows you to draw things with a dragon theme. So I made a dragon coin and I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was a great object to do. And I like it because it shows you some useful and interesting things within it, concepts within it. So Paint 3D, that's where the background is. Just going to hide the background and I'm going to import a cylinder. On that cylinder, I'm going to put a cube and I'm going to rotate that cube 45 degrees. I am going to copy, drag, place. So now I've got two cubes. I'm going to grab those, I'm going to copy, I'm going to rotate. Four cubes. I'm going to do all of that one more time. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, these cubes. Paste. Now I've got a geometric shape, a cylinder with 8 cubes surrounding it. I select all and rotate it. And I'm just going to resize some of these objects. So that goes to there. And then this goes to here. Now, the reason why I'm so happy, not so happy, the reason why this object so inherently pleases me is because it uses something that I like to use a lot, which is the duplication and rotation of lots of objects. So here I've got the beginnings of a coin or a medal. Now, I'll go into this in more detail in the 3D printing talk, which is at 2:30, I believe. But that if you're going to 3D print something for a class, to do a coin or a medal is a much better thing than doing a 17-hour print diorama that will take ages to do. If you've got a class of 30, to print something off for 8 hours per student is an awful lot of time to give up, your free time to give up. Whereas here's my coin. I'm just going to add an S shape. Need to make it a little bit bigger. And that gives me this. And this is my Smaug smallest coin. And again, the lovely thing about this is I can go into the paint tools. And I can start painting detail and designs onto this object. So if I want to have red gems on the S, I just add those in, draw those in, paint those in. And that gives me this. That might or might not be the right art background to have. Let's just have a quick look. Oh no, I'll definitely go for the red. For the Smaugust coin. Now, lastly, let's just go back into PowerPoint for a second. The final demo. Past one slurp of coffee. The Hubble Space Telescope. Now, you might not think it from looking at this object, but this is the Hubble Space Telescope. So let's quickly go into Paint. I'm going to load this object from one that I had ready. And again, if anyone's got any questions, please do ask. Or if they've got a specific object they want to know if can be made, or whether there are existing tutorials, ask away. This is the Hubble Space Telescope. And what I've done is I've gone to this website. I'm just going to load it up at the moment, which is W3 Schools Geometric. And this gives me a load of fonts, letter forms. Now, if primitives are the building blocks of 3D, and they are, this is the massive expansion set. This is the extension to all of that. So I'm just going to go to a letter form that I know I used, which will be this one. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back to my scene in Paint 3D, and I'm going to load it in, click on text, click on 3D type, paste, and deselect to import that letter form. That letter form gives me this. Just going to change the lighting. So that is now a 3D letter form that we can use. I mean, I always like to describe it as Lego blocks. and you're just massively extending your Lego set. So that is, I mean, if you want to do a simple logo for a company, that might be a good way to start. But I want to make the Hubble Space Telescope, and I do that by clicking on all of these objects, rotating, scaling, resizing, copying, and pasting. Now I'm only going to do the basic Hubble, and then I'll show you the more. I'm going to do a 3 or 4 minute Hubble, and then I'll show you the more complex one in the PowerPoint in a second. Now the lovely thing about this is, again, this is using tools a tool that is free. It's a massively simplified way of looking at 3D, which makes it much more easy to explain to your students and for your students to pick up. So all I'm doing is copying, at the moment, just 3 letters rather than 10 or so. That gives me this. Just going to shrink the height. There you go. I'm just going to rotate them. That gives me this. Letter forms copied, pasted, rotated. And a super simple Hubble Space Telescope. If I go back to PowerPoint, that gives me this. So I take letters off W3 Schools Geometric. I make a telescope or a spaceship or anything, a building, a bridge, anything like that. I like this demo because there's no creativity per se. You're not asking anyone to do anything that relies on artistic knowledge. You're asking them to put Lego bricks together. You're asking them to place objects next to each other and see the outcome. As long as you can copy, paste, resize, and place, you're there. And then what have you got when you finish? You've got rotatable models, which allow for more flexible outcomes. It enhances a presentation. If one of your students made that and had it rotating around a PowerPoint, how pleased would they be? And Paint 3D comes with 3D clip art. It comes with the capability to make your own 3D objects, or import an object and then annotate that object in Paint 3D. There's a lot of things that you can do. Now, are there any questions? Because now is the time. We've got 8 minutes left.
As always, I have a question.
Go for it.
Please, can you demonstrate how you can simply type text or numbers in, ideally numbers, and turn them into 3D objects?
Sold. Let's go back to Paint. So is this actually for a maths class or something?
Yeah, so you can lay out the sum in 3D, make it more interesting.
One of the, if you go to Paint 3D creative curriculum on YouTube, there's a 5-minute video just dedicated to things that you can do in maths using Paint 3D. So you can do tessellations, you can do scaling, you can make simple maths icebreakers. But in this case, type, you click on the type tool, which is at the top near to the left. Oh, sorry, just left of center. There are 2 type tools there. One, which is black type, which is just heavy type on the screen. If I move this halfway off, all you'll see on the canvas when I commit is the stuff that's on the background. If I click on this one, the 3D text tool, click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That gives me a 3D object. Now, a thing I wish they'd address in Paint, because I'd love it myself, is you can't ungroup these letters, these numbers. Once they're there, they're there. So if you wanted separate letters as objects, you just have to type in 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, enter. But we've done simple icebreakers on screen where you've just got that plus that equals 5, that plus that equals 8, or whatever. You know, those things that we saw on Facebook loads a little while ago. But what the nice thing about it is you can have the answers hidden behind objects. So once the student's trying to work out if they've got it or not, all they've got to do is rotate to see the right answer. But in your case, just for simple text, click on the 3D text tool, type 1, type 2. You can change the font if you want. You can color them if you want as well. Depends on how playful you want to get with it all. Oh yeah, it is doing it. Actually, it is doing it. It's just slowing down a little bit because I've got so many things open at the same time. Now, in that case, with that in mind, I'm just going to show you one other thing that when I showed it to the maths teacher, she was delighted with the idea of, which was scale and ratio. And the fact that you can have any animal that you want as clip art, well, not any animal, but you know, a very, very large number of animals in the clip art library. If I click on mixed reality, I'm going to have to swap camera in a second for this one. You want? So I've imported a 3D object, which is an elephant. I click on the mixed reality tab. Now I can have my elephant in scene. So here's my elephant, and here's my coffee cup. And then you can start talking to students about scale, ratio, weight, dynamics, anything like that in potentially a more creative manner. So the one that the maths teacher did was she had a matchbox 3D object, an elephant 3D object, and a real matchbox, and students were trying to line these things up and just see how much bigger one thing was to another. The other thing that she liked a lot was tessellation, and students making tessellating objects. Either by drawing or by copy and paste and rotation. and so on. And she liked the fact that she could engage the students who would not always come into maths because they were more artistically minded or visually minded. And she liked the fact she was given something like a brand new toy to play with. But like I said, please do have a look at YouTube. Paint 3D creative curriculum. And I think there are 3 or 4 different maths ideas to use Paint 3D within your class. Anyone else? Any other questions? Oh, I'll tell you what, I've just lost the chat room, I've noticed.
I thought that was very interesting, Paul.
Thank you very much.
It annoys me though. It really does annoy me.
What does? Well, what annoys you?
I have a very creative mind, and I think of all these wonderful things I can do. And for me, I struggle a little bit with perspective.
Yeah.
And so when I'm putting the objects together, I've always struggled with left and right. It's not a new thing.
Yep.
And therefore translating that into Paint 3D, you can see I have the
So the first thing that I teach all of my students when I'm showing them that is basically load up 3 objects and just get used to the idea of moving them forwards and backwards in scene. And doing that. So that is tricky. But the thing that I show the students, thank you, Kirsty. The thing that I show the students is select all, rotate 90 degrees, rotate 90 degrees, rotate 90 degrees, just looking at things from left, the right, the top, the bottom, just getting used to the idea of looking at things to make sure they are in the places that you want them to be.
Yeah, I try to copy your Rapunzel, although I try to do the owl and the pussycat.
Right, yes.
On an island, and I should have saved it really to show you, Paul. Yeah, there's a bit of intersecting and things going on that probably shouldn't have been, but I think it is a really good tool, and I think for certain learners that would be, they would take to it very naturally.
Well, look, the idea that we always had, and I hope is still the case, is, do you remember when Paint, people thought that MS Paint was going away and they thought it was going to be hidden or deprecated or taken out of Windows?
Yeah.
And everyone on Twitter went mad, and we had RIP Paint as a hashtag and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Everyone a lot of graphic artists stood up and said, the first time we ever made computer artwork was in MS Paint. Yeah. And what we wanted was the equivalent in Pixar in 30 years' time to happen. And for everyone to stand up and say, the first thing I ever made in 3D was a penguin, or something similar to that.
I've made a penguin, and it was a penguin. It's a strange looking thing, but it was a penguin.
Oh, I don't think my penguins are photorealistic, let's be honest.
Yours are pretty good, Paul.
So, so basically, I get students to fully buy into the concept of rotating things 90 degrees one way or the other. And that, I think, would help you in that respect. But next time we're there together at a trade show or whatever in that dim and distant future, we'll go for it again. I'll show you how to move things around.
You'll have to give me some of them top tips, Paul, because
I will. Right, I need a cup of coffee before half an hour's time goes by. So
it's so good.
Thank you very much.